Imagine you're just a guy working at Subway, crafting god-tier cold-cut combos, and out of the blue, sirens. The bombs are coming, but fortunately for you, there's a corporation called Vault-Tec, building these massive underground bunkers called vaults, just for the event that people need shelter from nuclear bombs, and one of these said vaults happens to be directly by you and your Subway's franchise. And lucky you, you're one of the select people that is allowed to enter one of these vaults, but then you get pulled aside whilst waiting in line, and next thing you know, you're the only guy that goes to this particular vault. You play it cool and just assume that other people are coming, but they don't. So for a year and a few months, you live in solidarity with nothing but your rations and the cold steel walls to keep you company until you discover a crate filled with nothing but puppets. Welcome to the Death Taco Cult. My name is Chris, and this is the story of Vault 77, aka the Puppet Man's Vault, from Bethesda's Fallout series. Now, to clarify, I don't believe that the Puppet Man is in-game canon. However, the webcomic that this character came from was co-created by the Fallout game lead designer Emil Pagliarulo, so it does have some validation within the Fallout universe. For some context, Fallout is a post-apocalyptic RPG originally released in 1997. The story follows a survivor of a nuclear-ravaged world emerging from a vault after hundreds of years of safety. Usually to embark on a quest or epic journey, I use the phrase quest very lightly, since some of these quests are retrieving lingerie from a corpse, collecting radiated Mountain Dew for a meth head, both ironically involving the same person, among loads of other quality storylines. But a major plot point in this Fallout series is the origin and purpose of the vaults, created by the Vault-Tec Corporation, which were originally conceived and appeared to be humanity's last bastion of hope in the event of a nuclear holocaust. However, unbeknownst to the public and said survivors, Vault-Tec had a more nefarious purpose for these vaults. At some point, the corporation decided they were going to conduct social experiments on its inhabitants, so each vault was given its own niche purpose, ranging from mild discomforts to all-out blatant torture. An example of one of these experiments was Vault 92. Vault 92 was constructed for the purpose of salvaging America's greatest musical minds and talent, fully stocked with top-notch instruments and recording equipment. Imagine Dr. Dre, Eminem, Doja Cat, anyone who is anybody, all crammed into an underground bunker. Straight bangers every day. One would think. Seems harmless enough, right? But did I mention earlier that Vault-Tec were some serious D-bags? So, the second purpose of Vault 92 was to study the effects of white noise exposure over a prolonged period of time on its inhabitants, more or less on some MK Ultra mind control shit. The guys in charge of this were the Vault Overseer and a professor, who were the only ones who had knowledge about slowly releasing this white noise, at first only exposing people in the recording studios and its equipment.
I'm a bit encouraged by the latest batch of data. It seems that 33% of the subjects are now lapsing into a trance-like state on occasion. When in this state, we're fairly certain that suggestion and programming of the subject can be applied. We've begun testing this by implanting subtle cues in affected subjects, making them scratch their ear or constantly fix their hair. So far, I'm happy to report a 100% success rate on this implementation method.
After this initial run of success, the Vault Overseer decided to go behind the professor's back and start pumping the noise into everyone's living quarters constantly. The result of this led to random vault dwellers going into a state of violent psychosis and savagely murdering people. The first guy to fall victim to the white noise took over 20 gunshots to put down. You'd think this would deter the Overseer, but nope. It's an unwritten rule that all Overseers have to be insane quagmire pain perverts.
Disaster today. One of our test subjects, V920717, has murdered 3 other residents in a fit of unbridled rage, the likes of which I've never seen. It took almost 23 shots before the security team took him down. This subject has no history of violence or mental instability whatsoever. My concern is that this subject is one of our most successful implant recipients, able to execute complex instructions during a trance state.
But once another 12 incidents happened, the Overseer decided we can't stop the experiment, but we can put a code word into the white noise that stops these berserker episodes. That phrase being, sanity is not statistical. But this proved to be too little too late, as the Vault would eventually go into a civil war between the insane and not insane, leading to everyone's untimely end. The cherry on top would be that Vault 92 had janky construction from the get, and the walls and pipes would deteriorate, leading to a breach that allowed creatures and mutated animals to take refuge amongst the war-torn vault in its aftermath. But by far the weirdest piece of Vault lore in the Fallout universe would be the unusual story of Vault 77 and the Puppet Man. The only point of reference for this particular vault would be in 2008's Fallout 3. If the Lone Wanderer should wind up at a slaver settlement full of bad guys called Paradise Falls, they'll discover a Vault 77 jumpsuit right next to a holotape marked "Burn this goddamn jumpsuit" in the slaver's barracks with an ominous message that goes as follows.
Like I told you, man, I don't fucking know where it came from, but it freaks the boys out. Some story from a while back about a stranger with no name. Just get rid of the damn thing. Ain't no good gonna come from keeping it around. Besides, if it is his, maybe he'll come back for it. Comprende?
So, taking this information at face value, we have a boogeyman story. A bad guy who the bad guys are afraid of. The end. But thanks to two guys named Jerry and Mike, we have an unofficial backstory for the sinister character. Enter the Puppet Man. The story of one man and a crate of puppets begins following the sole inhabitant of Vault 77, realizing he's the only living person in the vault along with the crate of puppets. According to the wiki, the purpose of this experiment was to study the human condition while being alone with toys modeled on living beings for soul company. So basically, the Vault Tech guys were bored and wanted to see if they could turn a functioning person into Mr. Garrison from South Park, which in retrospect I don't think was really too far from the actual truth. But according to the story, our lonely vault dweller spent an entire year dealing with anxiety and depression of being alone in a bunker at the end of the world before he finally decided to open the crate of puppets. And by this point, he had gotten understandably, let's just say, unhinged, developing multiple personalities, one taking the form of a Vault Boy puppet he had removed from the crate, which resembled the Vault Boy mascot. Other puppets that he had removed from the crate were the King puppet, whom the Vault Dweller had befriended, a Grandma puppet who would make the Vault Dweller pies, and Reverend Hound, who would act as a clergyman and the figure of authority/law within the vault, who was also just a puppet of a dog's head. Shout out to this guy's imagination though, right? So, after a certain amount of time passes, this guy's been living out a life of a Seinfeld episode with these puppets as the main characters alongside him. Until one day, the Vault Dweller stumbles upon the King puppet with his head removed. After questioning the Vault Boy puppet if he was the one who had committed this act of violence, he learns that, shocker, he was the perpetrator. But, fearing justice from the Hound puppet, yes, the dog puppet, the Vault Dweller decides to flee the vault along with the Vault Boy puppet. However, he opens the vault to find a rad scorpion the size of an airplane, so he shuts the vault, sleeps on it, and then he leaves the next day. Initially, he finds the wasteland not to be too bad as he's riding on the back of a giant ant named Mr. Pinch. He's eventually captured by two slavers who contemplate whether to enslave or eat the Vault Dweller. All the while, the Vault Dweller is warning the slavers to watch out for the puppet, who is comically also tied up with rope right next to him. The next panel of the comic, we see one of the slavers running towards a larger group of slavers, warning them that the other slaver was dead and he had barely managed to escape. Upon questioning from the other slavers about who he was running from, he reveals his attacker to be none other than the Puppet Man. A sound is heard in the distance, and the famous last words are uttered, "He's here." The final page of the comic reveals the Vault Dweller with the Vault Boy puppet in hand, covered in blood, and standing over a pile of mangled corpses. A narration reading, "So Vault 77 didn't turn out so good." You've got to remember though, the vaults were never meant to save anyone. And with that, kids, ends the legendary tale of Vault 77 and the Puppet Man. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. Also let me know in the comments other Fallout related lore or just other stuff in general you'd like to see me cover. I also have a podcast called the Death Taco Podcast, available on YouTube, Spotify, everywhere. So give it a listen if you're a fan of horror films or other weird internet oddities. Thanks for tuning in. Stick around.